Press the button. Okay, I believe I've pressed the button. Hey, Joseph.
Hey, Asim.
Hey. So, hi everyone who's listening in. This is our weekly session where we talk about the carbon hack, but also impact framework. So my name's Asmi Sain. I'm the executive director of the Green Software Foundation. And Joseph, why don't you give a quick intro to yourself?
Hi, thanks. Yes, I'm Joseph. I am project manager and one of the core devs on the Impact Framework project.
Wonderful. Let me go to the next slide. Um, all right, so we have. Wait a second, what do we have right now? Yes, so we have Carbon Hacks is our event that's happening in a couple of is it 4 weeks now? No, 5 weeks. When is it now? 6 weeks? Anyway, you're all here because you've heard of Carbon Hack, so I don't think you need to tell me what's going on. So our Carbon Hack this year is all about measurement with Impact Framework. Um, and we're really excited about it. And we think like we've been focusing a lot on kind of measuring software emissions and the problems around measuring software emissions. The hackathon. So I'm going to go very quickly go through this because I always do. Spend a couple of minutes going through the hackathon for the people who are new to the hackathon. But the bulk of this session is going to be myself and Joseph talking through. I think we had a couple more people who've submitted this since last week. Joseph, I'm going to talk through some of their
Yep.
projects. And then I think we had some other kind of more general stuff we are going to chat about in terms of impact framework. So you can hack in small teams or even just as one person. Um, we've got a number of prizes. We've got we've got hackathon. Well, the impact framework is just actually quite lightweight. There's not much to it. It's just a lot of plugins that we have standardized the interface for and standardized the communication protocol for. So really, like what we really want you to build, and where the power of Impact Framework comes along, is building plugins. And we're actually even going to be expanding out the plugin architecture a little bit over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, so that it gives you more options for things you can write plugins for. Um, One of the plugins we'd love for people to be, that's the best plugin prize. There's also the best Beyond Carbon prize, and that's the prize for the best plugin which helps you to measure impact beyond carbon. So we've got a lot of plugins right now that help you measure carbon. We really want to move the conversation beyond carbon. So we think there's a lot of interesting opportunities. If you read a paper recently, or you wrote a paper recently which understands how to take energy and turn it into water stress, if you can manage to represent that as a plugin, you've got a candidate for the best Beyond Carbon prize. We've got best content, which we should talk about as well, Joseph, a little bit. We've expanded that out a little bit, what the scope of that prize is going to be. Best contribution to the framework is the best contribution to the actual repository itself, the repositories that we've got. So our CLI tooling and some of our built-in models. And we've also got an under 18s prize and a best undergraduate prize. So on top of all those other prizes, if your entire team is made up of either under 18s or undergraduates, or maybe both, then there's additional prizes that will come your way. So this is we it's very important that we really want to support the next generation that's coming up in the process. Sorry, just the question came up, and if you've got any questions, please fire them away. Whether I think LinkedIn, YouTube, and the webinar platform, we'll see the questions straight away. Unfortunately, on LinkedIn, we won't see the questions because of unfortunately, on Twitter, we won't see the connections because of the Twitter integration. There's a question here from Wilco. Don't think the first contains examples of in and output, but the handling, for example, is in the. Oh, I think he's talking about the prizes, right? So best plugin is any of the plugins that you can add to the impact framework, full stop, whatever it is. If you're building a plugin which somehow measures something beyond carbon, so or helps to measure beyond carbon, that will get into the beyond carbon prize. The Azure importer is in the second. Yes, the Azure importer, because that's a plus thing that's being built right now. That is something that I would say. Actually, that's a good question. How do we define? Because technically, you could argue that Azure importer, because the outputs can be. Let me put it this way: if your plugin outputs a value which is of water, of air quality, or if the output of it is something like that, then it comes under the beyond carbon price. But before that, you're probably going to use like quite a few plugins to get data to the point so that you're at the point where you can push out water. That's how it works. So if your plugin is pushing out water, that's how it works. Hope I answers your question quickly, Wilco. Let me know if I didn't. We're still, I think we have now 5 or 6, I don't know if we follow our sponsors on our website right now, but we've got 5 or 6 sponsors right now. So we've got a prize fund of $25,000 or $30,000. But we're still open to more sponsors. Each sponsorship package is $5,000. You get a seat on the jury, logo on the Hackathon website, various other things. But I suppose the most important thing is over the next couple of weeks and as the Hackathon is progressing, we're going to start bringing on people. And what we'd really love every sponsor to do is to work with us, and we'll chat to you to kind of like nurture an idea that you want some hackers to, you want some participants to hack on. And that's really what I'd love to get out of the sponsor. Because if you're sponsoring, you're probably sponsoring because you've got a measurement problem. Let's talk about what that is. Let's use that as a case study. Let's use that as something to actually drive this through. And just really quickly, because Joseph and I were chatting about, so best content, we before we'd always thought of this as more of a tutorial, but based how some of the things are being proposed right now, we've realized it actually is more, most of the stuff coming through right now is more like case studies. And we're very happy with that. We're very happy if you want to measure something using Impact Framework and do a detailed write-up of what that is. That will come under the best content prize. As long as using Impact Framework to help you in understanding the emissions of something and you're being very verbose about it, that also counts as best content. One of the things we realized, you actually have to start using Impact Framework in order to teach Impact Framework. So the first step is using it in a case study. So that's kind of, that comes under best content as well. Let me drive through. Here's some important dates, highlights from the past year. And just the main links are grunstuff.org/hack/sponsor form. If you're ready to sponsor, you can go ahead and click that sponsor link. If you want to find out more information about sponsorship or anything else, you can email us at carbonhack@greensoftware.foundation.com. Foundation. And the website is hack.greensoftware.foundation. And that's where you can go to find more information about it. All right, let us just start talking about the hackathon. In fact, let's do this. Where's my thing? Hack, there it is. Yeah. So we were just going to go through and look at some of this stuff, weren't we, Joseph? Let me just share my screen properly. I've forgotten how to share screen. Oh, it's off my screen. Here we go. Present. Share screen, that's it. This is it. Okay, here we go. Bada bing. Come on. I want to make it smaller. Oh my word. Okay, it's not going to happen. This is the size everybody's going to get. I'll zoom in. So we've got a couple more submissions, haven't we, Joseph? Here we go. So, where should we start? Last week, we finished on this one. I would like to... Did we talk about this one?
We did briefly.
Did I briefly?
Well, maybe we spoke about it offline. I can't remember. But we've definitely had a discussion about it.
We definitely. I think we might have discussed.
It might have been live streamed.
I might have been live streamed. Who knows? But we should talk about this one as well. I realized that I haven't commented on this one, and so let us get some thoughts together on it. Yeah. And it's been 2 weeks ago, so let's get some thoughts on it together. I've thought about it a lot. I just haven't commented on it. Let's start at the top. Is that seagulls?
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid that is the seagulls outside my window.
Is the seagulls outside your window? Oh wow, that shows the
coastal life.
Coastal life, yeah. Okay, so we have manifest generator, which I think we have to probably have a chat about straight away. But this is from FapFaf. Let me find out some details about you, FapFaf. Oh, I've got no name for you, but FapFaf. Fap. I'm going to call you Fap. I plan to build an intuitive interface, either a GUI or what's a TUI?
Text, I guess.
Text user interface.
Graphical user interface or text user interface.
Ah, TUI. Aimed at simplifying the process of generating manifest files for software projects. This tool will lower the entry barrier, making green software practices more accessible and appealing to new users, thereby encouraging wide-based adoption and contributing to the more sustainable software development ecosystems. Is this project viable considering the current stability of the manifest file? That's a very, 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 very good question. Would a TUI, as an addition to the current CLI, offer more integrated process support, or a GUI capable of displaying more details to the graph be more suitable? How should the configuration of plugins be handled? Should it include plugin-specific questions? It's a very good questions, actually. It shows that they understand, they've read through, they've really understood what's going on here. Or simply provide an input field with a reference to the plugin for configuration details. That's a good question. Oh, yes, and we aren't recruiting, so they have a project team. It might just be FAP. I'm just going to talk. I'm probably just going to say like I'm going to eat the frog first, and we're going to talk about kind of the big issue, which is that I'm not too sure, as it's written right now, which of the price categories this would fall under. I think given our current price categories, this actually, the way it's written right now, wouldn't fall into any of them because it's not a plugin in the sense of how we define plugins. It's not content, as in it's not content. It's not a contribution to the framework because we're currently defining that as you're making changes to one of the repos in our repository, in our organization, and it's not beyond carbon. However, it's a very interesting project, so I wonder if there's ways that we can talk through this. My other thought is straight away, like we've had other people talk about writing a GUI before, and we've given them the same feedback. And just to be consistent, make sure we get the same feedback. We wouldn't write a GUI at this point in time. We are literally about to change the structure of the manifest files. We're not guaranteeing won't be changing again in the future. I would recommend before you write a GUI, wait for us to get to 1.0. Wait for us to get to 1.0 before you write a GUI. TUI, on the other hand, is quite interesting. I think there's something there. I don't know. What's your first thoughts, Joseph?
I like it. I mean, it is a little bit awkward to write a manifest file from scratch right now, especially if you're coming at it at the first time. I did create there's a bash script in the IF repository that auto generates manifest files, but it's very rudimentary and it's still not very good for beginners because a lot of the information is hard coded. You have to go in and change the bash script if you want to change the contents of the file. So this is interesting for sure. I really like the TUI idea, almost like one of those old text adventure games on the command line. I can imagine a set of questions that. Well, actually, that would be the big challenge. What can you come up with a set of questions that really covers everything you need to know to build the manifest file correctly? It's an interesting thought experiment. I'm not sure.
Well, I just realized how I might suggest how this, because I think to answer this question, you probably have to answer. That's probably a different question. You probably have to answer a more fundamental question, which is like, what does a good manifest file? Like, I imagine. We might be a bit early for this because I think after the hackathon you'll have a lot more data regarding how people are using Impact Framework, how they're using it to measure different things in different contexts. You'll have a bunch of examples of how people have used it to measure AI, to measure Kubernetes and cloud, and based off of those things that you've seen, you might be able to come up with common patterns and then some questions to ask. But one thing here is what is what could you answer this question manually? Forget about having a tool. Like, could you literally answer this question manually? What is, and we should turn this into a content and training project. And you'd have to answer, you would have to figure out the answer to that question anyway before you code it up, because you have to figure out. I was watching a video on the weekend, and it talked about this pattern of mental model of thinking, and it was, I love the term, it was humanize, organize, then mechanize, which is like humanize is like do it yourself as a human being a number of times, or see how other people have done it as a human being a number of times. Organize is then like by seeing lots of examples of how people have done this themselves, then you can create patterns and you can see commonalities and ways of working, and only then do you mechanize, you automate this stuff. So yeah, I think like if you could tell me what is, if you could, like if there was a manifest file that like this is the good starting point for a web application, this is the manifest file that's a good starting point for a cloud application, this manifest file is a good starting point for a mobile application, even just that all by itself is very, very useful. And I think you're probably going to have to figure that out before you figure out what it is, because, you know, that might be one of the first questions you ask. What type of application are you building?
Because it could be something that's more like the experience of using create React app or create next app or whatever.
I know what it is, but I've never run it. I don't know what the experience
because
is.
So basically you would just write create next app on the command line, hit enter, and then Next.js just asks you a bunch of questions about the app you want to build. Do you want to use this? Do you want to use this Tailwind CSS library? Do you want to use the app source folder? Do you want to use this? Do you want to use that? Do you want to use this? Do you want to use that? And you answer a load of questions, just yes or no on the command line. And when you get to the end, it sets up a template app for you where you just go and fill in your page.tsx or whatever, and then your app's ready. So it's not necessarily, I guess the analog with this is not necessarily building your final manifest file, but it's asking you a bunch of questions and then creating your template so you can then go in and fill in the details yourself.
What would our questions, so fine, so what would our questions be? So we've got like some specific, our YAML file has got like a title, tags, description, so it's kind of got those questions you might want to flesh out. Then it has, do you know what, it's even actually just useful just to create a YAML file with just so you know that the fields are okay, if that makes sense. Like the fields, you've corrected those right fields. But then we've got this initialize section with the plugins. I don't know, like maybe like what plugins do you want? Do you know what plugins do you want to use? But then you probably have to list them out. What else? Other section do we have in there? I don't know. We've got the
so I think everything in context. What we're thinking of now as context, which is everything outside of the main graph, is probably relatively easy to autofill based on responses to CLI questions. Even if the model pipeline in the initialize field is just names, and you have to go in and backfill the class name and the path or something like that. It's still useful. And then outside of that, building the graph is the difficult bit. But obviously, it doesn't have to have any input data or anything like that. It just has to get the structure right. So if you can at least tell the CLI what components you have and which ones are children of which, then it can at least build you a skeleton architecture with the right indentation, the right nesting.
So there was this, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's in Visual Studio Code, if I remember. It might have been a plugin for Visual Studio Code or something like that. But there was a way, if you're writing HTML, to actually write it in a shortcut string format or something like that. You could write like div, and then there were like certain like commands you could use, and then A or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. But it was like a string notation that helps you like then generates a tree of HTML nodes underneath you. So here you could say, you know, region instance What else would it be? Probably be that, really. Cloud. I don't know. App. Something like that. Even if it just created, or like 10, 1 times cloud, or maybe you could do like US West. Maybe there's something like this. Like, you're right. Anyway, effectively, some way of helping you write the structure would be useful, because you can get a little bit wrong, can't you? You get an indentation wrong or something, it can be a bit funky. Okay. How do we solve the problem that this isn't, that there are some people, so Johan, hi Johan. So some people, like, there's support for this idea. So there is support for this coming through. And they're all like definitely in the NPM land, there's a lot of generators. Yeah, there are no automates for generating YAML files based on specific models. You'd have to manually generate them, which is interesting. So for this currently to be valid, it would have to be like a contribution to the framework itself. Train a LLM to spit out manifest files.
Well, to be fair, that's what I thought the issue on the board was suggesting last week.
Oh, did you?
It actually isn't. But that's what I thought it was the first time.
Yeah. Well, eventually, once you've got these things, we need a lot of them. We need to train them up on a lot of them. Yeah. See, I think it's something. So, given where we are right now, in the terms, it has to be something that is baked into the CLI. So I think given that's probably the feedback that we provide, is it has to be baked in. Currently, it has to be baked into the CLI, which I'm not too sure is a good idea, because there's better generators out there. But yeah, or we have to go and really have a deep think about best contribution to the framework, because there are.
I mean, maybe if you passed a -- wizard flag or something like that to the CLI and it started a series of questions. I don't know. Yeah, something like that. Okay, spent a fair amount of time, but it's an interesting. Yeah, I like the generally there's a lot of interest in there, and I think there's it sounds like there's a lot of interest in here. We just need to maybe help FAP. Just want to make sure that it's something that meets one of our. The thing we wanted to avoid, this I think feels more in line with what we were really trying to avoid, just so everybody understands with that kind of like with the rules, is we wanted people to not build like really high level applications on top of Impact Framework, because the value of Impact Framework is only the value of the plugins in the ecosystem. So you need more and more plugins to be built, and also Impact Framework is changing all the time. So for where Impact Framework is right now in terms of its maturity, we need lots of plugins to be built. I think once we get to 1.0, people are going to see the real power, and then we can build applications on top of it. And even like the developers are looking at how you can actually run Impact Framework, not as a CLI, but as a library. And then you could use Impact Framework as a library in your other applications, is something that's being explored. But that'll be a 1.0 thing. But right now, a manifest generator feels intentionally much closer to something that we would actually want to be created right now. We just wanted to avoid like really high level applications built on top of Impact Framework as a library. It's just not ready for that yet, and it doesn't need that kind of support yet. That's where we were coming from. All right, so the next one should hopefully be easy, because it's Trini, and we know about this thing. So, Azure Importer is a plugin that has been kind of already somewhat developed, or we built some of this actually, just to help like figure out how do we get data. Does it have anything here? Okay, let's read it out. So the Azure Importer is a plugin that aims to provide capability to calculate SCI workloads deployed in Azure services using the Impact Framework. The project plans to extend the existing proof of concepts we found here. Based on analysis, we have observed that the workloads running on any computer draw energy from the underlying host can be measured through metrics like CPU utilization by measuring these metrics on a fixed time, passing through the IF computer patch time. Okay. The plugin will use the Azure Monitor API to collect observation of Azure results and feed them into the Impact Framework computation pipeline.
The project will support batch API and multiple metrics for SCI calculation. The import will take the subscription ID and resource group name as input and run through all the Azure services deployed in that specific for the hackathon, Azure Virtual Machines, Virtual Machine Scale Squares, Azure SQL, Azure Kubernetes Services, a stretch goal. That's quite a lot. This is a plugin, but the plugin development can be considered as a framework. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I honestly, when I first started looking at the Azure API for like, because I remember we were chatting, I thought it was like a simple API. You can just go, hey, I'm using Azure. Tell me everything you can tell me about everything that I'm using Azure for and give me the utilization for everything. And I was shocked to find out it really wasn't anything like that. Like you have to say, I am using this specific service in Azure, query using this method of querying, parse the data using it was like everything needed to be custom built. Like, and Azure's got 100 odd services. So that surprised me. I just honestly thought it was like a Prometheus query or something I could just run generically across everything. So what they're doing is they're basically implementing the ability Azure Virtual Machines, Virtual Machine Scale Sets, Azure SQL. So at least we've got a database in there, and AKS as a stretch goal, because each of these it was almost a separate application in and of itself. And I presume that's what they mean by saying you'll be able to extend this in the future with more Azure services. They're building in such a way that you could then go Cosmos DB, another Azure service, and you could just keep on adding them. Yeah. Sounds good, Srini. Well, Srini is one of the original leads in this project, so I think there's but just to FYI, everybody, they won't be involved in any of the judging processing. To come from the sponsors.
I'll be very relieved if this gets done, gets submitted. I'll be very happy that I don't have to implement this anymore because the original Azure importer was surprisingly awkward, but also really important. So I'll be very happy if a bunch of people from Microsoft want to deliver this instead.
Yeah,
because we definitely need it.
Yeah. So I think we should have, if there's anybody on the call or anybody listening later on who's from like AWS or IBM or Google, look what Microsoft's doing. They're building an Azure importer. Wouldn't it be cool if there's a GCP importer and there's other stuff, other ones? Just really quick, there's a bunch of questions coming through, but I just want to make sure everybody's like really clear on some interesting. I'm just going to talk about the group by feature and.
Just before we move off this, there's one question just to highlight on the in the chat from Danny, and it's about how that project, the Azure API project, relates to the other one with about the Carbon API on Azure. No, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think the answer is that there's a Carbon API and that just returns Carbon, and it's kind of opaque about how that Carbon was actually calculated, whereas this one used the Monitor API to get the granular measurements, and then the Carbon comes from the additional IF plugins that you run on top. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that so Danny. So what this is what I used to call like bottom up versus top down. So there are other ways of looking at it. I used to describe it as, are you doing reporting bottom up or top down? Turns out like no one does reporting bottom up because you can't call that reporting. You have to call it something else. But like, are you the way the Carbon Optimization Service API? Oh, have I got a heart that's come up?
Yes, you have.
Okay. So, oh, that's broken. It keeps on crashing my camera every time it does it. So the way the API Danny's talking about is one that is top down. So it's taking how much we paid the our energy suppliers this year, this month, divide that out by the number of machines, and kind of like go at it top down to try and get that down to like a machine level. what we're doing is kind of bottom up. What this other plugin is bottom up, which is like how much CPU utilization has this machine got? Can we turn that into carbon and sum it up to the top? They're both Danny Barnes is kind of like it's almost different audiences is what the way I describe it. What you're describing with the carbon optimization service API is more targeted at the people inside an organization that do carbon reporting, whereas because the conclusions you can make from that API are kind of very high level and coarse grained and not very granular. What's still important things and the stuff that Srini is doing is bottom up, because once you compute carbon using the bottom up approach, it'll never add up properly to the official carbon numbers of an organization, so it can never be used from any reporting context. But it is very useful because it gives you a per process level indication. Whereas if you take how much you've been billed for energy at a data center and try and like pinpoint exactly the process on a machine that's responsible for like 1/10,000th of that bill, you never get to that level of granularity. So they're kind of like, I always describe it, you're almost speaking to two audiences. One audience is top down. You can get daily. So John's answering. You can get daily data. It's not because you've apportioned it through some mechanism of trying to figure out how much that bill actually goes down to it, and it won't be. I don't know. I haven't read the latest work, but it won't be specific. Yes, there'll be a number attached to a per VM. Like historically, what Microsoft used to do is they just used to take all the energy data and say, well, there's 10,000 machines in this data center. We're just going to divide that by 10,000, and then every machine has a number. But how did it get that number? It's just a number. So I think there's the methodology for how you get it is significant. Yeah, but I don't know. I might be completely wrong, Johan. I haven't looked at the latest stuff, so they might have done some stuff I've not seen. There's some other stuff here. Here we go. What's a good? Oh, Johan, a good first something that schema that could help with auto completion. That's good. I think you can actually with YAML you can have a schema. I think it uses the JSON schema, same as the JSON schema. So if you've got a JSON schema, it'll work with a YAML inside like Visual Studio or something like that. So we should definitely have that. Oh, I've not seen Apple's new config lang. Didn't realize they have one. Oh, here it is. PKI. I'll take a look at it later. Thanks, Johan. From Wilco, have you considered methods for assessing impact framework computing emissions directly without need for additional impact framework compute without the need for additional plugins? Is that like self-referential? Like to measuring yourself?
I think it's
yeah, we should report ourselves basically. It's kind of like this. Yeah, okay. It's kind of like this. Like, but then which plugins do you use to report yourself? Because that depends on what it is. I think we should definitely report some stats on usage. I don't quite know what that is, but maybe we should definitely report CPU utilization or something like that. Maybe at least in the log level. I wouldn't add it to whatever the manifest is currently reporting, because you're trying to like measure something in particular. So you wouldn't add like the running of that. But yeah, we should definitely explore. It's kind of the chicken and the egg approach. That's the problem we've got right now. Yeah. Like, do we use the plugin pipeline that somebody's put? Like, which plugin pipeline do we use? Because the whole point of manifest file is like the user defines how to convert utilization into carbon, unless we have our own. But then we'd have to install all the plugins. I don't know. We should put it in there post beta, because I think there's a lot of conversation we need to have around that.
And I guess the IF plugins repository is the obvious starting place, because they're the ones that we actively maintain, and they do give you a full pipeline from energy all the way through to carbons. Yes, that would be the default.
Oh, that's a good point, isn't it? Because if you're using a plugin, we haven't thought about this. If you're using a plugin, we don't know what that plugin is doing. We're just calling a thing. It could even be spinning up another process, which they often do. Is there something we need to do about reporting back out the emissions of that? Oh, that's giving me a headache. Okay, yeah, let's put it on an issue to like I think it's gonna take some time to like figure out, because there's a tree of execution we have to figure out. Extra explain that evaluating the computational impact of the impact framework during model processing. And the computational impact. I think that's the same one, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. So he explained, he answered what we were clarifying. Yeah, the computation of the impact framework during the processing models. I think that's what we answered. Oh, and coming back to our other point about the daily data, Johan's answered, and it uses cost as a proxy. So VM license will have emissions, but a free SQL server or free static web app will not have emissions. Stupid. I'll take that off. I'll take that off screen, Jan. But yeah, it is a little questionable. But it's yeah. Everybody else. That's the challenge you get when you go top down. You're always picking a proxy. You're always doing something. I've seen some clever work from IBM, actually, very, very clever work, because they're doing some sort of usage proxies to go out. One really good, interesting idea from Scott Chamberlain, who used to work at Microsoft and was my lead at Intel. He told me ages ago it'd be really interesting to have, so like use last month's actual data as a proxy. So you're kind of like you're kind of tuning some weights for how you turn this billing data to per process based off of the bottom up calculation from previously. Does that make sense? You're kind of like weighting, kind of two models, kind of weighting, putting weights on each other, which is an interesting approach. All right, let's just. I've forgotten what I was doing here now, oh, I know. I was going to put a comment here. Oh, here you go. That's slightly different. But so I think the point I wanted to make a point for Srini, which was the to look at the group by and the mock observations, because I think it should come down as a single stream, and then we use grouping to get the to get it grouped, which is something. Oh, that was what I was going to show. I'll show. Hang on. So this is being developed, but it's the way that we're expecting like a lot of data to come in this kind of flat array. I expect once you like import data from most services, it's just going to come as a flat array of like, this time, this machine, this region was this utilization, this time, this machine, this region was this utilization. But for Impact Framework to work, you need this to be grouped into buckets, with each bucket is like a time series. You effectively need to look at it like this, where like this region, this child, and ultimately you need to get to the point where each of these inputs is a time series with no overlapping times, because that's how aggregation works. And so we've built this kind of, or defined this kind of group by plugin, which is you get it in a flat array, and then you can just effectively do a group by. So this is grouping by cloud region and an instance type. It's very complicated, and it's required us to like really rethink the algorithm and refactor it. But it's how I think most of these importers are going to work. These importers will just give you a flat dump of all the data that you can get, and it's up to you as a user to actually group it in a way that makes sense for your calculation that you want to do. So that's kind of one of the things. I'll raise that to Srini on that one. Anything you want to add as your importer? No? No. Okay. Let us go quickly down, because I can see Danny's on the call. So Danny, if we didn't tell you before, I think we'll be in, because I think, did we say to you, Danny? Oh yeah, I did say. Did I say? Basically, Danny, I think what we do is next week or the week after, we'll just bring you on this call. So if you're there, if you're on this call right now, so I can see you in the chats. So I forgot, if I haven't actually sent you a message. Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I never actually sent you the message. We'll ping you, or I'll get you to ping me. And we'd love. I think the best way would be just to jump on this call, all of us together. Maybe Srini as well. Maybe that's the best thing to do. Is Srini, you, me. Let's jump on this call. Let's talk about what we just spoke about and figure out where the boundary is and where one works and where one doesn't. Yeah, we'd love to do that. So yeah, so I think that's basically the last. Yeah, to bring you in. And I think it's generally for everybody who's submitting projects. Like over the next weeks over to the hackathon, we're going to start bringing you in on these calls if it makes sense, especially if you're recruiting, especially if you need a little bit more refinement. To start bringing people in and let's just start chatting. And there's a very vibrant chat happening on here. Here's another one from Wilco. Would incorporating default transformations from a data source to common model YAML model files in the code base make sense? Oh, I kind of see where you're coming with this. I'll tell you one idea that I thought of for a while ago is infrastructure as code. So if you've got like a Terraform file or something like that, is there a way of taking a Terraform file and just creating a stub manifest file? That Terraform file, or whether it's Terraform or I don't know. Actually, I don't think I've ever even looked in my entire life at any infrastructure as code configuration files. So I'm only just going by what I've heard. But technically, it should be possible because if that infrastructure as code has got references to, like, you need to spin up a database, you need to do this. Maybe there's something you can infer from all of that and then transform that into an impact manifest file to help people along their journey of actually like turning that into, to computing the impacts of something like that. That's something I
wonder if you could do the same thing with a Docker file.
Yeah, that'd Docker file. I suppose a Docker file would be more specific, wouldn't it? I mean, it's been a long time since I wrote any Docker file. I have actually written a Docker file, many Docker files in my past, but I can't quite remember. I was mostly just copying and pasting from Stack Overflow, if I'm honest. But yeah, Docker file could be interesting. Yeah,
because you've got a set of step-by-step instructions, and obviously you've got your images and whatever that are very specific, and should be able to infer enough information to get most of the way to a manifest file. I would have thought. You got to know what applications you're going to run on it as well, and it seems doable.
It doesn't have to it doesn't even have to take you the whole way. It's just like before. If we can just stub out a manifest file, then that would be. Oh, but then we're hitting the same problem. What does that? I think we need to explore. I think we should explore the same way. If we allowed case studies in the, maybe we should loosen up a little bit or figure out how to include these obviously developer. I suppose that's what we're talking about. Developer tooling should be okay. Yeah. Developer tooling should be okay. Is there a way we can change the language to include developer tooling? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Right. I did want to make sure we covered this as well because I haven't actually put anything on here. Yes, so I was very excited to. Sorry, did you have anything else to say on that, Joseph? I just carried on before, like.
I didn't have anything else to say.
Okay.
Please carry on.
Okay, all right. Sorry. Just like now we've got 15 minutes to go. Oh, brilliant! I think we should take off label of draft then, shouldn't we? If they've registered. Yeah, I think we just take a draft, but we'll do that in a second. So Kepler, for those of you who don't know, is a CNCF project for measuring the edge of bare metal Kubernetes clusters. When I was at Intel, we get really upset when people just called it RAPL, because it's Intel RAPL. It's Intel's RAPL. It's not RAPL. It's Intel's RAPL. It's like saying anyway. So yeah, so Intel's RAPL. Sorry, I'm just joking. We all know. We all fully aware what RAPL meant. So how Kepler works, and this is I'm just need to like just is there a diagram here? Okay, this is is there a simpler diagram? No, maybe this is it. Okay. So where are we? So it is something. Here we go. So something like this. Oh, here it is. So this middle thing I think is the process running on a container. Okay. Then like it just there has like a sidecar or something. Every process just has this like Kepler thing attached to it. Every container has this Kepler attached to it, which then uses a whole bunch of different things. You get perf counter stats to get like energy. RAPL is how you get CPU utilization, but also spec power based energy estimate. Okay, yeah, got it. Any hardware monitor sensors? There are sensors on there as well. Just basically getting a bunch of counters, as many counters as you can from the container, and then effectively like putting that into a way where you can it just gets stored in a Prometheus. That's basically what Kepler is, but it's just there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. One thing that's always been a bit frustrating for me about Kepler is it's just Kubernetes. It's just Kubernetes. And I'm like, there's so much stuff inside Kepler, which if it was extracted out would be useful from a huge swathe of use cases, but it's just there. So that's one of the things. So I'm just excited that now it's kind of in here. We're getting a connection into it. So idea problems. We're thinking of building a pipeline which has the following steps: Prometheus importer plugin. Pulls Kepler metrics from the Prometheus importer. So there we go. Kepler plugin analyzes the Kepler Prometheus metrics and normalize the data to consumed by official IFCF models. So I suppose that means, I don't know exactly what that means, but I presume that means, computing energy. I presume that means computing energy and publishing energy out. Given what I know how Kepler works, it actually has its own model. Like it has its own like TEEDS-esque model that uses machine learning. It's very clever. It's a really, really good system. And then the IF models, and then publishing it back out. Oh, we've got this Prometheus metrics publish exporter back out. Prometheus server. So yeah, so I think that's pretty well thought out. I think I understand what that's doing. We the number of times Prometheus importer has been raised. As in, well, quite a few. And the number of times Prometheus export has been raised is quite a few. In fact, I think there's probably going to be several submissions around that. Measuring SEO Kubernetes when running on bare metal, we would require Kepler Meter Grafana to be installed on the Kubernetes cluster. If pipeline to calculate SEO be invoked via Kubernetes crop job. Very good. Very good, because you would just run the impact framework script every 5 minutes and it would run it. What programming language can we use? We'll have to answer that question. Are there genetic models we can build on, e.g. for Prometheus and Kubernetes? No. Okay, that's an excellent project, says. Brilliant. Oh, they're written in Go, it looks like. Okay, excellent. So I think, so questions. What programming languages can we use? Any, but TypeScript would be the most efficient. any through the shell model. So you can actually write, I don't think we need to I don't know where we're going to end up with it, Joseph, but we do need to respec that out. Yeah. So no. I don't think there's any generic models. But look at...
We'll hopefully have a CSV exporter.
Yeah.
If that's what they're talking about. So that's kind of almost middleware between IF and Prometheus or Grafana or whatever.
Yep. Importer, and then look at CSV, and I'll link in the actual issues. CSV exporting will be a core feature. So I imagine it's going to be something like this. It's going to be like IF blah 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 blah, and then pipe, and you're going to have your export to Prometheus. I think it's going to be something like that. Prometheus. So it's going to output some sort of CSV to the standard out, and then you'll have some script which is going to publish it out, which I think makes sense. Otherwise, if you have 100 components, every single component is going to do a separate call to Prometheus one at a time, which maybe it'll do. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to ask them some questions back. So this is my notes for later, everybody, because I haven't. So is the Kepler plugin exporting energy calculated from the internal metrics? Calculated using a Kepler model. For this installation, because my understanding of Kepler, the thing I think is really clever about Kepler is, I believe this is how it works. You install Kepler on all of your machines that are running, and it then, in the background, if I remember rightly, is somehow training up. At all times, it needs to go and figure out how much energy your applications are using. And how it's doing that is, in the background, it's using a bunch of services, but one of the things it's doing is it's training up a machine learning model. So it's training up a machine learning model, but that machine learning model only understands your machines. So in a way, that machine learning model is whatever CPU and utilization you've got, you would ask your machine learning model, which knows on this machine that utilization is usually equal to that energy, and it kind of like uses it that way. And what I've always wondered is, well, that's an amazing feature. Can we extract that out of Kepler and have people run that everywhere? Why does that have to be Kubernetes related? So so that's how I think when they're talking about the Kepler plugin, that's I think what they're talking about is like, you have to go back to that service to say, this utilization on my machines, what is the energy? Because that is a really, really good solution from a Kepler perspective. Let me I've got 5 minutes. Hang on. Kepler machine learning model. No, that's not it. No, that's not going to get anything. If you put machine learning in any query, it's just going to ruin every query from now on. Kepler maybe there's like a, here we go. Kepler power model. That's it. 2 power modeling approaches. Right. This model computes a finer grain power so if for some reason on the infrastructure that you're running on the bare metal infrastructure, if you happen to know the total power draw, which sometimes I think with if it's got power meters, I think I'm making things up. Power this model is use the power this no total power. Pre-trained power models, right? Yeah, so I don't understand it all right now, but yeah, this is some quite interesting stuff that they've done. It's just kind of hidden away in here. If we can get this out, so everybody could use it. I've thought about proposing this as like a project or something with this CNCF. Let's get this out of Kubernetes and into the world. So if you're listening, well, that's not an Impact Framework plugin, but anyway, that's like a good project to have. Yeah, I'll put it in here. So I've got it there. Okay, all right then. Oh, Paz! If we're talking about a Kepler model, maybe a scaphandre model will make sense. How does scaphandre work? So scaphandre works by... I always thought scaphandre is more as just like a direct measurements. I've always thought of it as a direct measurement. I actually can't remember how this works. Propagate virtual machine. How to host level power and energy metrics. It's based on Intel RAPL. There you go. I can't quite remember how it works. I know it uses RAPL, but oh my god. No, RAPL gives you energy. So yes, sorry, I'm being an idiot. I'm being a complete idiot. RAPL gives you energy. It doesn't give you CPU utilization. It gives you energy directly. So right, that's how you've got energy. You've got it off RAPL. Right. Yep. Yes, that's how it works. Yeah. I suppose this is dumping it somewhere, isn't it? This is dumping energy into some sort of database. It must be doing a similar thing. Where does it go? Oh, Prometheus Exporter. Right. Right. Yeah, standard out exporter. Similar to what we're doing. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Scaphandra. Yeah. Well, actually, in a way, like what's Scaphandra doing? Is it well? Oh yeah, Kepler. Sorry, I'm completely wrong. So Kepler's doing right. So I everything I said about Kepler is wrong because my mind had forgotten that Intel RAPL returns energy, not utilization. So I don't think. So I think that this. Anyway, I don't think I'm fully with it right now. But there's something here. There's something here. Like I think it must be using RAPL. I must be using RAPL, or if it's an actual power meter installed on the machine, to train a machine learning model for when you don't have RAPL or a power meter installed on an equivalent machine in your data center. So that's how I think it works. A couple of your machines have Intel RAPL worked. If that process happens to run on that machine, it trains up the machine learning model and it says, I'm at 10%, I'm using up 25% of I'm using 25 watts, store that in the database. And then when that process runs on a machine which doesn't have a power meter, you then basically get it just looks at the database, like, what's the CPU utilization to this value. I think that's how it works, which is kind of interesting. Which is very interesting. But anyway, we're at time. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I think we're at time. Again, if you've got any more questions, just fire them away. Best thing to do is just to go, if you've got a project, just go in here and start proposing your project. So go in discussions, just start asking questions. If you're ready to hack, if you want to be part of the hackathon, just go to hack.greensoftware.foundation, and we'll speak to you again next week. Catch you later. Joseph.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Here we go. Stay. End stream.